Senator Kolkhorst, for what purpose?
To ask the gentleman some questions.
Senator Middleton, do you yield?
I do, thank you.
Senator Middleton, if you'll just give me a second. I'm looking for something here. I'm having a bit of a deja vu moment here for Senate Bill 6 of 2017. Your language has some very similar language to mine, and honestly, I just want to go through a history lesson here, if we could. One of the history lessons being that, do you know when all of this conversation began? Do you have any idea when all of this began? What is it?
That was, I think you first proposed it in 2017, and it was at some point before that. I think that bill had been introduced before, but I don't recall exactly in the 2015 session.
So it actually, let's go back in time, and it really started on May the 13th, 2016, when Barack Obama, President Obama, issued the Dear Colleague letter. And within that letter, he said several things. And he said that gender was not determined by sex, but that it was determined by what you thought, in so many words. I have it on my computer. If you'd give me a few minutes, I'll pull it up, and I could quote from it. And he went very much into detail about the Department of Justice, actually. Let me correct myself. President Obama's Department of Justice. And basically, there was a penalty attached to that. If you did not allow someone who identified with their gender to stay in overnight trips, I mean, very specifically went into overnight trips in school-related activities. It went very specifically into private spaces like bathrooms, listed out bathrooms. Went very specifically into locker rooms. It went very specifically into sports. It went very specifically into Title IX. And I become very emotional about Title IX because I was a benefactor of Title IX from 1972 because we had no sports to play in back then. And actually, 2 Democrats passed that bill that allowed people like me who wanted to play sports. I was going to have to play baseball with the boys. And because of that bill, my father started the softball league in Brenham, Texas. And a little girl who dreamed of being an athlete got to play. I'm one of the fortunate ones. I got to be a college athlete. But I never dreamed that the day would come that I would have to worry that a male would walk into the bathroom. And I really respect all my colleagues here and their question of where are your statistics. But when that letter set in motion, there was a lot that happened. And right before that, in 2015, in the city of Houston, Anise Parker had an initiative that then all of the, as you remember, the spiritual leaders of Houston, Texas, got together and they defeated that referendum, that proposition. And then shortly after that, the Dear Colleague letter. And then shortly after that, Senator Kolkhorst files Senate Bill 6, of which the Lieutenant Governor and I had many press conferences, suffered many attacks, and questioning, as you said. I've told you that story. This is a solution looking for a problem. But fast forward, post Dear Colleague letter, there's been a lot. No one ever dreamed, when I put sports in there, no one ever dreamed that actually there would be men playing in women's sports. It just wasn't a thought. But I knew that was going to be the ultimate reaction, the ultimate purpose of that bill. And it happened. And so we can all argue here, but I stand up as a woman to say that our private spaces should be private. I had a cause of action. Senator Huffman walked over and we were looking at old Senate Bill 6, and I had some cause of action. And there are details in there that maybe you need to, as this moves to the House, continue to work on. But I think that the purpose of the letter of your bill, Senate Bill 240, is a reaction from 2016 and the Dear Colleague letter. Would you agree?
Yes, and that HERO ordinance, I remember at the exact same time that was happening. It all happened within about a year of each other. and
So
really
words on
take this
paper
on.
matter.
They
I'm just going to
matter a
ask you
lot.
that question. Do words on paper matter?
They matter a
Because May
lot.
13th, 2016, there was a letter that was sent to every one of our school districts and said, we will withhold your federal funding if you do not allow someone who identifies, and they could identify differently every day, into those private spaces. So words on paper matter, right?
They do.
So words on paper saying, and I've heard my colleagues say, of course we don't want men in our bathrooms or in our locker rooms assaulting. I don't want to undress in front of a man in a locker room. That's not appropriate public, even though it's private, it's public when you go into a locker room and you're undressing. Nor should any little girl feel like that either. In fact, it could be a deterrent for them playing sports or going to YMCA or going to a public place, undressing in front of men. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Thank you very much.
And we heard that story from Riley Gaines, so thank you for your leadership on that, Senator Kolkhorst.